Hey everybody, wanted to let you know that my new book, Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market, is now available on Amazon and has already hit the bestseller lists. We're going to be coming out with Audible soon and hoping to get it into some bookstores, but it would mean the world to me if you went out and got your copy here today, because in this book, I tell never before told stories on my 12 plus year journey in the moving industry. So go get your copy today. Hometown Titan, build a local business that dominates your market, and tighten up.
I usually at least start off with like 30 ads for one offer, one thing, like in one section of the funnel, because I see it as, I just aggressively test as much as we can. Most of it won't work. Maybe like 20% of it will work. Cool. You just kill all the rest of them and now you focus on those. A lot of agencies will make that for you and then hold it against you. And right, but then and the reason why that's horrible is once if you end your contract with them for whatever reason, all that tracking, all that data that you have on your website for your business, they own, and it's in their possession. That's the biggest key is I would block off every business owner, block off time during your week. So the only thing you do is make content for organic, and that's the only thing you do.
When movers ask me which CRM to use, it's a no-brainer. I've used Smart Moving the last 4 years and I recommend it to everyone. Once I got my hands on Smart Moving, there was no going back. It was like using an iPhone for the first time. Clean and simple, yet powerful enough to be the centerpiece of our entire business. We're firing off sales follow-ups. We've got automated email campaigns going out. We're dispatching crews out of multiple locations. I run reports and look at KPIs daily. Smart Moving is really tailored to operating a moving company at the highest level without the bugs and glitches I've seen with other softwares. If you want to grow, Smart Moving is the software for you. It even scales as we open new franchise locations. This keeps everything centralized so our teams can field leads, book moves, and operate just as efficiently from anywhere. Check them out and use my link at smartmoving.com/Wade. That's smartmoving.com/Wade to get 1 month free. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. Long time no talk to some of y'all, but as you know, I like to only do episodes now with people that I am genuinely curious about learning from and people that I want to connect with, rather than a lot of podcasts out there that are just talking to whoever. And I used to be like that, where I felt the need to put out a podcast once a week. But now it's all about creating value for the audience. So they may not be all about the quantity, but the quality is there. And today I'm really excited about a conversation that we're going to be having regarding Facebook and Instagram social media ads. And today's guest is Jake Behler. And we happen to find Jake from a referral. And it's funny because that is basically how he does business. He's an independent ad manager for social media for massive companies. He's managed multiple 8 figures in ad spend for huge events, people in the info product space, a bunch of businesses, and he's generated $40 to $50 million in revenue through social media advertising. Jake, I'm really excited. You're a fellow Gator, one of the University of Florida champions. We just took in the college basketball national championship. And I didn't even realize that when we first started working together. I see you got your Gator shirt on here, but I'm a Gator as well, 2-time Gator, in fact. And really excited to have one of my fellow alumni brethren on the podcast today. You're based right here in Tampa, Florida. And we found you leading up to the Hometown Titan Retreat. We had a referral that ultimately led me to you, and you crushed it in the ticket sales for social media advertising leading into the Hometown Titan Retreat. I think you sold well over 200 tickets just from the Facebook ads for that. You're going to be working on the ads for our Moving Titan Retreat coming up September 10th through the 12th. And you're also going to be helping me out with 2 college brothers and getting some social media marketing going for my moving company. And, I've worked with big flashy agencies in the past, and I've never really been able to see a quantifiable ROI. But after working with you for the hometown talent retreat that we just held here in April here in Tampa Bay. I am very confident that you're going to be able to help us out because you clearly know what you're doing. You track everything meticulously. You A/B test things. You do all kinds of amazing stuff, and I'm just really looking forward to having this conversation and learning about social media advertising and seeing if that's another dial that we can turn to grow Two College Brothers into one of the largest moving companies in Florida and beyond. So, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on. How are you today?
I'm great, Wade. Thank you, and thanks for again for having me on. Really, really happy to be here.
Yeah, well, so let's just jump into it so the audience kind of knows your background a little bit. You've managed for ad spend for some massive companies with some massive budgets. I mean, I don't know any moving company that's spending eight figures in advertising. But the fact that you've been able to not only just generate, multiple X's of that, 40 to $50 million in revenue, but just the fact that people have trusted you with that big of an ad budget is really a badge of honor, in my opinion. But tell me a little bit about your background. You obviously went to the University of Florida, but how did you get into this space with social media advertising? You're an independent ad manager for some big companies and probably some small ones too. And you understand business, you understand small business and how to track things. But I want to know, take me on that journey real quick, and then we'll get into some nuts and bolts questions on how moving companies can employ some of your tactics in their advertising marketing efforts.
Awesome, yeah. So I started, going to UF. I actually started as an advertising major, so just going through that. And as I was going through, I very quickly realized, like most people, especially in marketing, advertising in college, that they're teaching me radio and direct mail and TV, which I already knew. Not having any like education was, you know, they're 20 years behind, and it wasn't teaching me the things that I knew were going to be applicable today, especially for smaller businesses. So, funny enough, like most people that do marketing now, I started with Ty Lopez's courses that here in my garage, the SMMA course. That was super, super helpful for me. That actually is how I got uh, my first agency client who I started working for. That I was actually, he was the one managing Ty's marketing at the time. So I was able to work with him and then manage all of his clients as well as his personal brand and his ads and everything. And that's essentially how I got started in a nutshell.
Nice. And it sounds like you've built up quite the portfolio. I know you've got some NDAs and can't go into the specifics on exactly what companies, we've had those conversations offline, of course, but what are you seeing like when you first start off a campaign for whatever it is you're doing, whether it's an event, whether it's a business, what's kind of the first things that you go in there and look at and do to get started with social media advertising?
Yeah. So to answer that, I want to backtrack a little bit, um, and just kind of break a little belief that uh, most business owners, small business owners, especially blue collar business owners, have. And I honestly blame most marketing agencies for this that do that like guarantee 20 leads or don't pay us, stuff like that. They make it seem like it's almost a magic trick, like you just plug and play and then your ads just work. And what they're really doing is taking very what I call bottom of the funnel. So people that are ready to buy from you already, and they just have templates for that basically, and put your branding in. And the reason why I say that is you have to understand that ads is a process, especially if you're just starting out new and you don't have much data to go off of, like how well your conversion rate is on your site, how well is your opt-in, how well is your appointment show up rate, your call booking rate, all of those statistics. If you don't have that super dialed in and measured and understand that, you have to understand that ads is going to be a process that, is going to take some time. The one thing I want to stress is never see ads as a waste of money. Most people say like I threw it and it doesn't work. I would disagree with that. Like the metrics tell you something, no matter what, right? So maybe, right, if you look at the click through rate, maybe the ads were good, but maybe your opt in rate was bad, right? So now that's a problem that you can control. So now I would go to the landing page or the opt in page, whatever, however it's set up for you, and then I would be fixing that. Right. So understand that your metrics from the very beginning to the very end tell a story, and you want to understand each one of those metrics so that you can understand how well everything is performing. Um, so yeah, I know that's a long-winded way of
No,
answering that, but yeah.
no, I appreciate you bringing that up because a lot of times what we see in the moving industry, we're in a seasonal business and companies will crush it in the summertime. They got more leads than they can handle. They don't have enough, movers or trucks or salespeople to handle all those leads. And then in the winter time, what we see is a lot of them just slash prices. Things slow down from September till probably right around now for most companies in most parts of the country. They're not getting as much business, and so they just start racing to the bottom when it comes to price. And I always tell people, is it a sales problem? Is it a pricing problem? Or is it a lead problem? And a lot of moving companies owners don't understand that. They just think, because we're slower, we're going to lower our price to get more competitive. But if your booking percentage is still where it normally is, then maybe it's a lead problem. And that's where we look for new sources of leads. There just aren't as many people moving, but that doesn't mean there's not still thousands of people moving. And slashing prices is just shooting yourself in your own foot because then you can't make the margins you need to be able to put back into advertising to fix the lead problem.
To race
And
to the
if
bottom. Yep.
yeah, and if you have enough leads and you're not getting a lot of business, then still may not be a pricing problem. It may be a sales problem. So it's really important to kind of follow that bread trail and figure out, where is the true problem here? Is it a pricing problem? Probably not. It's probably either a sales problem or a marketing problem, and you're not generating enough leads. So I guess, kind of backtracking again, going back to what other agencies are doing with the bottom of the funnel stuff, what are some of the biggest things to look out for in an ad agency? I mentioned that we've worked with flashy agencies in the past, and in the summertime the results are great. In the wintertime the results aren't so great. And so I'm like, wait a minute, is this a factor of the advertising campaign, or are they just riding the wave with the seasonality and they're not really moving the needle, and we're just paying them a bunch of management fees and money to not generate a lot of new quality leads? I mean, where do you see as an independent going up against a lot of these ad agencies that have huge teams that a lot of times it's a bunch of kids out of school that don't necessarily know what they're doing. They're kind of glorified internships, but they're charging a huge markup on ad spend. And I remember we worked with one where their management fee was over twice what they were allocating towards ad spend, and this didn't make sense after a while. But I'm curious to see what you see if you come in and try to save a company's social media advertising strategy and campaign, and they've been working with an agency. This show is powered by HeyLou's virtual assistant team. They've revolutionized how we run our business and can handle anything from inbox management to social media, research, and yes, even production of this podcast. Want to reclaim more than 20 hours a week in your business so that you can focus on the things that really move the needle? Use our link in the description to get started with your own dedicated VA with HeyLou. And thanks to HeyLou for powering the Grow Your Moving Company podcast.
Yeah. So the first one, great question. The first one is going to be if they guarantee you leads. That's almost the biggest telltale sign that they're a scam. Not necessarily maybe a scam, but they're taking templated ads, basically putting your branding in and then just kind of copying and pasting it across the board. And as long as your funnel and your branding works, then it will convert, right? So why they do that is if your whole funnel is set up well, that may work, but it will only work for the short term, right? So they're kind of fooling you into thinking that, because the biggest problem now with ads, and even in my space, even with people that are spending six figures a month, and I'm working on this with some clients that I'm doing that with right now, is that it's imperative that you're focusing on your brand, which is why I actually think the future of social media and advertising is going to be great organic content. And I know that's kind of goes against what I do, but it's the unison of both of them together rather than only focusing on the paid ads. And most people love the paid ads part because you can measure it down to to the most granular level. Whereas with branding type content, it might it's hard to gauge exactly how well or how much business that's bringing you. But going back to what you're saying, in the wintertime with, is it a lead problem or a sales problem? Right. I would agree with you. It's a marketing problem. If your call booking rate's the same, right? It's probably because when someone wants to move, they're not thinking about your brand. They're thinking about someone else. Right. So, yeah, about that. I mean, that would
Yes.
be, yeah, going, so sorry. Yeah, for the agencies, that would be the biggest one. I think if they guarantee leads, because I already know how they're doing it. There's a lot of little things that agencies that some will do to try and take advantage of, especially small business owners. Big businesses are aware of this, so they don't allow this to happen. But always make sure that you have control of your tracking. So it's called in Facebook your pixel, or also a data set. They're the same thing. A lot of agencies will make that for you and then hold it against you. And right, but then once you're, and the reason why that's horrible is once if you end your contract with them for whatever reason, all that tracking, all that data that you have on your website for your business, they own, and it's in their possession. And Wade, I know from like experience, this is a huge problem, and
Yeah,
it's
we're
a
dealing
way,
with that.
yeah, and it's a way that agencies unfortunately take advantage of small business owners.
I knew you mentioned some things about like the bottom of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, the top of funnel, and that most agencies are just mainly focusing on that bottom of a funnel, and it's only like 5% of people are in that stage. Can you elaborate a little bit more on exactly like what the difference between those three different pieces of the overall funnel are?
Right. Yeah. So there's the top of funnel, which is, awareness essentially, right? And even that you can break down into very, very specific sections, right? So there's, problem aware, there's solution aware, there's brand aware, right? So there's people that don't even necessarily know that they need that they have the problem. Then there's people that don't know that have the problem, that don't know what the solution is. And then there's people that know what the solution is, but don't know which solution to pick, right? Out of all the moving companies, which one should I specifically choose? So you want to establish that. Most people don't establish that at all. They're just trying to run ads for, buy now, sign up, right? And that would be the bottom. So we'll start top down. So the top funnel would be awareness, and then the middle of funnel would be consideration. So they've looked at your brand, they understand it, and right in terms of an ad sense, I would be running a lot of testimonials, social proof, authority, showing why you're better than the competition and how many other people that you've helped that are very similar to them. So you're just, kind of pushing them over the edge. And then that bottom of the funnel would be, the buy now, the book, the very call to action, salesy type language. And yeah, it's the easiest trap to fall into because it's the easiest to measure, right? I mean, like a good example, I know it's not in the moving industry, but a huge influencer that's popping off now, his name's Ashton Paul. He's a fitness dude. You may have seen his content. It's super viral. He has this crazy morning routine video he does. Right. And it's gotten literally hundreds of millions of views. I'm not even joking. He's generated like a couple million followers just from that. I can guarantee you that he's gotten hundreds of thousands. I don't know this for a fact, but I can guarantee he's gotten hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars of business from that one video. But you can't necessarily track that, right? Like there's no way to know specifically from that video, if just in terms of setting up tracking, it would be impossible to know that. So I think that's why most business owners stray away from it, is because it's very difficult to measure. So when, if I were to try and pitch that to somebody to invest a decent bit of money into doing marketing like that, most business owners are always like, what's the ROI on what I'm going to spend? Right. And that reason why that type of funnel is hard is because it's hard to gauge that. Because I would argue, in marketing is probabilistic, not deterministic. So, except for performance marketing at that very end. So just focusing on the brand and keeping your brand aware.
I want to take a second and tell you all about Tighten Up Training. As a co-founder, we've spent months and months and months and a lot of money pooling together resources from some of the best moving companies in the world. And we're excited to bring this to an online platform available to any mover to use at an affordable price. Tighten Up Training has over 200 videos, including mover training, your highest turnover position, so that you can reduce claims, streamline operations, give your team the tools to perform at the highest level of service that generate repeat and referral business and allow you to charge higher prices, as well as sales training, marketing training, business development, leadership. We're adding more content as we speak. We've got legal training in there. We've even got door-to-door training for the moving industry, thanks to Lenny Gray at the Moving Titan Retreat. We've seen a massive explosion of moving companies jumping on to Tighten Up Training since the last retreat, and people are loving it. And when you sign up and mention this podcast, we're going to give you a free 6-week onboarding course in order to learn how to hold your team accountable and get the entire team on the platform so that you can have the best off-season and summer season that you've ever had. Ideally, the best 2025 that you've ever had. So go to tightenuptraining.com, schedule your free demo today, and look forward to tightening up. Yeah, and traditionally, I've always been a big proponent of direct response marketing and things that I can track and tie an actual ROI on every dollar that I spend to. And the problem that we've run into at the size of company that we are is that we pretty much tapped out most of the things that are trackable, that are very trackable from a call, like a direct what's the word I'm looking for, direct response standpoint. And so we've tried a few things from more of like that brand building play. Like we've been advertising on the MJ Morning Show. It's a local radio show now for 3 or 4 years, and I just had this good feeling about that. Because I knew the audience. I knew that it was a very targeted audience. It's on the 80s station. It's older demographic, tend to be more affluent. People that listen to talk radio are going to tend to be more along the lines of our ideal clientele. And I knew that specific audience was there. And if I would have tried it for 90 days, and like most marketing that I try out that is very direct response driven, I probably would have given up. But I was like, you know what, let's stick with this for at least 6 months. And lo and behold, we started having some offers with free boxes. When you mentioned MJ, he's an influential figure. He's trustworthy. It goes back to what you were saying about like the testimonials. And after about 6 months, we were able to tie a lot of business back into that, because we do ask everybody how they heard about us. And if they're redeeming an offer like free boxes, that prompts them to say where they heard us, because they heard about that free box offer. And we're able to track a lot of that. And it's, a $4,000 or $5,000 a month spend has generated, $40,000 to $50,000 a month, most months, from just what we can track. And there's probably a lot more that we can't necessarily track, because, sometimes we'll talk to somebody and they'll say, oh yeah, I saw your truck, but also my realtor mentioned you, but also I heard about you on the MJ Morning Show, but also, I got your postcard in the mail. And it's like, okay, like where do we pin that? But we also know that it does take several brand impressions before somebody makes an action. And we know that we need to get in front of people at the right time, because not everybody's moving all the time. People move on average 3 to 7 years when they own a home. Sometimes it's 1 to 2 years when they're renting. But it's all of those things kind of compounding to create an overall marketing strategy. And social media spend, even though there is a lot of like this brand building that goes into it, it is still very trackable at the end of the day in terms of who you're reaching, a targeted specific audience, how many clicks you're getting, how many impressions you're getting, and then overall, your other things. So what I think, a part of that top of funnel, that awareness that you were talking about, ultimately over time is going to lift up your other marketing sources and the conversion rates on what people think they found you through, if that makes sense. But tell me a little bit about the tracking that you can do with social media. I mean, for the audience who may be new to this space, what is a pixel? Like, what are the ways to track people? What's retargeting? Can you kind of just dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So a pixel, or also a data set, Facebook loves to confuse you and call things the same name. uh, they're the same thing. So essentially what it is it's a string of code that there's two elements of it. one you put on the header of your website, and in most web builders they make this very easy. So if you go Apple, WordPress, Webflow, whatever you're using to make your website, unless you're using some weird, obscure new app, they most likely definitely have a place for you to just literally copy and paste it in there. And it's just a string of code that goes on your site. And what it's doing is it's tracking and monitoring all of the actions that the users on the page are taking. And that's what's going to reflect back to Facebook. So if someone views the page, if someone fills out, submits an application, signs up for a lead form, buys something, whatever you're trying to get them to do, that's what will reflect back to me on the ads manager, and then tell me, okay, the cost per submission is this, the cost per purchase is this, the lead cost is this, and then that's how you can gauge, okay, this is performing well, this is not performing well, etc. So
Got
that's a pixel in a nutshell, and it can look daunting to set up, but I promise there's so many resources and online, like YouTube University, of course. There are so many resources now to help you do that.
Yeah, and then you mentioned, the middle of the funnel where you're getting people that are coming to your website from some of these other sources. They're aware of your company. They know they have a problem, but they're probably getting inundated with direct mail postcards because their home just got listed. They go on Google and they see, 10,000 results. You've got your LSA, you've got your PPC, you've got your map pack, you've got your organic listings, all the different real estate pieces on there. And they're just kind of overwhelmed. And so what I am really excited about working with you on here is retargeting to those people that might have clicked on our website. Maybe they filled out a form, maybe they didn't. I mean, we're getting between 10 and 20,000 web visitors a month across all of our locations. And I want to say we're getting like 6% of those web visitors converting into lead form fills or calls. Maybe if you factor in calls, it might be a little closer to 10%. But like talk to me a little bit about like what the retargeting, like kind of what that process works in the middle of the funnel, and what companies can do to try to capture more of that traffic that's already finding their site, and getting in front of them to ultimately get them to fill out a form or convert to a lead or a sale. Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part, this resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email.
So yeah, retargeting is one of the most powerful ways to do advertising because your click-through rate's going to be higher, your CPMs most of the time, industry specific, but will be cheaper than if you're just running cold traffic to people that don't know your brand, don't know you. So the way to do, there's a lot of ways you can go about retargeting. The easiest one is just in the most kind of like, bottom of the barrel one is retargeting website visitors. So just the people that, you make in Facebook what's called a custom audience, and then you can retarget the people that are visiting your site. And I normally divvy this up from people that visit in a 30-day window, and then 30 to 60 day, and then 60 to 90 day. If you're running it that long, it is kind of industry specific. So if your sales cycle is longer than that, like maybe I would do it even longer. So it depends. But those are kind of the easiest ones to do. And what's great is, if you've ever had people, like this Titan event, they're like, the second I got on the website, I can't leave. I get an ad, I'm getting blown up. And that's the easiest way to do that, is just retargeting them and, never leaving their screen, so that every time they see you, or every time they're going on social media, they're seeing you.
Yeah. What kind of ads from your experience tend to work the best for that middle of the funnel?
Yeah, so social proof, so testimonials, having your customers talk about how great you are. Anything that's showing authority. So if you've gotten awards, like in 5,000 or industry specific awards, things that just make you stand out from the competition, those are the best ads because those people now are brand aware. They know who you are, but they might not yet, they're considering you, right? That's why we call it consideration, but it's not, maybe they're not like fully committed yet. And that's really the job of that middle of the funnel is to be like to stand out from the rest, essentially.
Yeah, essentially build trust and authority and expertise with people that are already familiar with you and that already have a problem, or else they wouldn't be going to your site in the first place. And what I love about, the idea of this retargeting is you can capture people in the different stages of their cycle when it comes to moving. So, with our SEO strategy, you've heard me do podcasts with Brian Bloom in the past. For those of you who listen to my podcast regularly, he's been our SEO guy for 6 or 7 years, and part of his strategy is to write a lot of articles about the local area that people are going to likely be researching and typing in keywords to research an area, like the best schools and the best neighborhoods and the safest places and the crime rate and the weather and all these different things, the gyms, the attractions, something that somebody's researching when they're thinking about moving to an area or moving to a neighborhood. And then that brings a lot of traffic with those less competitive keywords, but they might not be moving for 6 months or a year. They might be researching it for somebody else they know that might be moving. And they may not even realize they're going to be moving because they're just curious about the area, and then they see all this stuff about how great it is to live in our area, and then they end up pulling the trigger later on. But the idea is that in 6 months or a year, or maybe less than that, they will have seen your brand, your company. You've already built a ton of trust in their mind, and then they go and they search moving companies. They see you show up with the SEO for direct, Tampa movers or whatever, and they click on your brand because they've been seeing it all over the place. And that stuff really does work. And again, to your point, it is kind of tough to track, but I imagine there is a lot of people that they'll keep seeing your ads, and then eventually they will click on it because they're ready to buy. And that would be considered like the bottom of the funnel, right? Where they're like,
Right.
they know they need to hire a mover. They've been seeing your stuff constantly. I know I've been guilty of this, just, for whatever thing like shoes or, supplements or whatever. I've been just researching some things, and then I see the ads all the time. And then, after several impressions, I end up clicking on that ad and filling out a quote form or making a purchase directly there on the spot. But you say that's only like 5% typically of who you're serving on that bottom of the funnel stage. How are you, I guess, reaching those people that are actively looking to move?
Yeah. So there's a few little like tricks you could do. So if you're doing that SEO blog strategy and you're writing your own blogs on your own site, what I would do is actually create a separate pixel for those individual pages so that I know that okay, if they're clicking a blog about, X, right, that must mean that they're looking for, the X, right? And where I'm going with this is I would now make ads. So let's say they're clicking a blog about what's one of the blogs that you have? I'm just curious.
Yeah, like safest or best schools in Tampa is
Okay.
probably one of them.
Okay.
I don't know if
Okay.
but I know they're along those lines.
Yeah. So then I would make an ad. I would make a bunch of different ads retargeting the people on that specific page, having to do tying in moving and family and schools somehow. Right. So, I'd be workshopping that. Right. So then that way they're like, how did they know? Like, how are they speaking to me? Right? Because as you said, there's a bunch of different reasons and different why they might be interested, and they're in terms of awareness is completely different for everybody, right? In terms of how where they are in market, out of market, etc. So being able to get as almost as granular as you can in terms of understanding what they specifically want and how you can help them and tie in your services to how you can help them, that will crush.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point too. And I didn't even realize you did this, but basically creating different pixels for different segments of the website so that you can target that person where they're at in the cycle, and then also your avatar. If you're wanting to move seniors, say you're a senior moving company, and you probably want seniors in your pictures, and give it they're being the ones that give testimonials. I mean, ultimately, it'd be awesome if you built so much trust that if the person's seeing your ads and they're not even moving, they recommend you because they've been seeing all these great things and all these happy customers and all these different trust building activities. But so that's something that you do with the pixels is like you would put maybe a pixel on like on the landing page that comes up after you filled out a quote form to get, a quote. So that might be somebody who's, very likely to move and you're trying to just seal that deal. But then you might put something completely different for, somebody who stumbles onto the best schools article that, may not necessarily be moving, but a way to build trust and identify yourself as like, the mover for families because they clearly have kids if they're researching schools.
Exactly. Exactly. My goal is to just take them to the next step. Wherever they are in the funnel, I'm just trying to get them to that next step. And then, you know, I'm building out the processes to, take them from each step to the next, to the next, to the next. So like that person specifically we're talking about, I'd be trying to get them now to fill out that opt-in form. And then once they're filling out the opt-in form, then, trying to get them on a call or purchase whatever, however that funnel is. So yeah, it is dependent on, of course, how it's set up. So like, let's say you don't have blogs like that, but you have a really detailed form entry. So you're just taking all their data wherever those leads are going, whether it's an Excel sheet or it's your CRM, wherever. You can in any CRM, you can do this, divvy up your list by age. Again, it's all dependent on what uh, queries you're asking for in the form specifically. But let's say it's age, right? Like, I mean, the best one I would do it is by how qualified they are or how high the ticket is. So I'd be segmenting like these are the highest ticket. These are the people that are most likely to purchase again or to refer us, right? And be kind of divvying up those audiences, and that will create what you can do with Facebook. It's awesome. It's called lookalike audiences. So you could take,
Mm,
let's say, your most qualified best buyers that spend the most money in shortest amount of time, et cetera, just your perfect candidate. Take just those people, put it in Facebook, and then say, now I want you to look for people that are just like these people. And that always crushes. I've never used a lookalike audience that doesn't work. And this might be a good time to lead into, a big mistake that I see with all beginners, no matter the industry, is just a lack of creatives being tested. They'll run
mm.
like 3 to 5 images, and then they're like quit. They just think Facebook's bad. I usually at least start off with like 30 ads for one offer, one thing, like in one section of the funnel, because I see it as, I just aggressively test as much as we can. Most of it won't work. Maybe like 20% of it will work. Cool. You just kill all the rest of them, and now you focus on those. And once you find that one winner, because you only need the one, then you just build out tons of variation. So I'm going to keep the same head, all the same copy, but change the image. I'm going to do different copy, but keep the image. Like I'm just going to break it off into every single thing. I'm going to do the exact same image, but instead of a black background, I'm going to do white, gray, silver, red, blue. I'm going to do literally every single color. And just keep on going and abusing that variation until it stops working. And normally it never does stop working, and it just feeds off of the other.
Yeah, because you could have two almost identical ads and one word might mean the world of difference. I mean, we ran,
Yeah,
how many ads did we run for the hometown time retreat in 6 weeks? Probably a
hundreds,
hundred or so.
hundreds,
Yeah,
well, a couple hundred,
hundreds.
hundreds.
Yeah.
Yeah, easily, easily.
And it wasn't until, I mean, that was such a short campaign, and that's part of why I'm so looking forward to the moving company because it's going to be ongoing. But I think it was like the last week or two, we finally got a video test or a video hype video from Tommy Mello. And then that was like the magic bullet. And if we had more time leading up to the event, if I found you sooner, we probably could have dialed that one in even more, gotten a couple different videos to A/B test with him. But we knew that was the clear winner. But even before that, we found several sets of ads that were working, and then we'd try something against that, and then that might work a little bit better, and then that might work a little bit better. And I love that you do that much testing because you never really know what is going to work at the end of the day.
You
I mean,
never
you
know.
can
You
have
never know.
all the all the marketing experience, all the intuition. You might, read a million books on it, but at the end of the day, it's what the market wants and what resonates with the audience. And sometimes that's totally different than what you would have expected.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. At 99% of the time, the ad that I'm like, ah, that's gonna crush. It's normally the one where I'm like, that one sucks, and then it somehow crushes all the rest of them. That's normally how it is. But yeah, the big mistakes I see around creative is two things. They equate aesthetics to sales. No one cares how pretty your ad is. In fact, some of the best ads I've ran are visually the ugliest. That's just true. Unless you're like a graphic design company or something like that, where like design is your business. But other than that, that doesn't apply here. And then the next one is maybe not a problem, but a question I get constantly is should I do video or should I do, image ads or whatever? Because there's a big narrative now that image or that video performs way better, which I can prove to you right now is not true at all. It gets higher engagement. People are, in terms of ad recall, more likely to remember it. So, in terms of that awareness top of funnel, organic content, I would agree. But in terms of the bottom funnel, what can convert? I've seen literally every type of ad convert. I'm serious. I've seen Canva ads that everyone watching. I'm the least artistic person ever, by the way. This is why I work with designers. We can, I'm going to say, I've seen every type of ad work. So blank yellow background Canva ads to 5 minute full commercials that cost like 50 grand. Like I've seen everything in between. Really cheesy, cringy AI ads. And I say that to say you want to test everything. Like don't leave anything off the table. Do really nice graphic ads. Do really on brand. Do really off brand. Do you know, same thing on brand videos, not try AI ones, try not AI ones, because you never know.
Yeah, and I know you work with some people that can create that stuff. So basically, you get our assets, you get our pictures, you get our videos, you get our selling points, our branding, and all that good stuff, and then you can basically work with your vendor at a very affordable rate to essentially create, just pump out all these different things. So it kind of takes the burden off the owner. And I know as a business owner, a lot of times we are biased towards our own preferences, especially when it comes to marketing. And we think, oh, well, I like this, so everybody else that I'm trying to market to might like this either. But you're not your customer. You need to ultimately figure out who your customer is and what they like and or what just resonates with them, even if they don't like it. It reminds me of, back in the day, and maybe these are still out there. I haven't seen them lately, but you'd see like these weird pictures of like a strange fruit or like a banana, and it'd be like the five things your doctor doesn't want you to know or whatever. And like I used to see those ads all the time, and I'm like, who is clicking on these things? They look so creepy and weird. But they must have been working because I would just see those weird bananas or whatever all the time, and it just goes to show, it might have been a super legitimate product at the other end of it, but it probably just somebody A/B testing it. I remember Tim Ferriss talked about in his 4 Hour Work Week book, he ran A/B tests on pay per click to come up with the title for that book. And originally it was going to be something completely different. And he threw that up there on a pay per click and it crushed. And he's like, all right, well, this is going to be the title of my book, 4 Hour Work Week. And next thing you know, it's a bestseller. So
Yeah,
it's really interesting how that works. Like, what all types of different ads are there? So you mentioned video, you mentioned graphics and testimonials. Like, what are all the different types that you can run on Facebook and Instagram?
yeah. So there's image ads, and in terms of the placements, I recommend just throwing them everywhere. Again, let your data. I start off broad as I humanly can, and then get really really narrow. So if that makes sense, and I let the data direct me there, not what I think or what I hope or what I want or what I wish. What the data is telling me. So there's video ads. Of course, there's carousel ads, which is like a slideshow, basically. And there's something called flexible ads, which is it used to be called dynamic for all you media buyers out there, but now it's called flexible, which it's the same thing. What it essentially means is you could take a bunch of different images or videos and put them into one ad, basically, and then Facebook will test them for you rather than like it being a slideshow or where you could scroll and see all of them. It's going to show each different one with different headlines, with different pieces of copy, because for each campaign I'm testing 5 different headlines and 5 pieces of full text for each, and Facebook will round robin it and figure out that combination that performs the best. So there's that. Um, there's in terms of like the type of ads, so there's like all different types of awareness. So you want to go through every stage of awareness, right? And then there would be an ad for each of those, if that makes sense, right? So problem aware, solution aware, brand aware, etc. And then the same thing. So in consideration, that middle of funnel, there are ads that are social proof, authority, and then for that bottom of funnel, urgency, scarcity, last call, blah 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 blah. Those are the type of ads.
Yeah, no, I know there it's like a whole world
There's a
full
lot.
of options. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
there's a lot.
yeah, you hear people say like, oh, I can just run these ads myself. All you have to do is, do a radius marketing, strategy in my town and select, people that you think are going to be likely to be in, moving or whatever. But it gets so much more in depth and complicated. Kind of the more you go down that rabbit hole. Let me get your opinion on something. So like we've all been talking about something, or we've been texting with somebody about something, or just going online and researching something completely different but sort of relevant to what one thing that we might be a potential buyer for, and we'll start to see ads for those things. Like I might start seeing ads for agencies after having this conversation with you. I mean, is Facebook listening to what we're saying? Are they reading my texts? Are they watching everything I do online? Like, how do they know what they know? Sometimes I'm just like thinking about something and I haven't even said it to anybody, and I'll start to see ads for it. Like, how are they doing that?
Because they're tracking everything. The one thing that makes my life difficult is it used to, like, when I started, 7 8 years ago, they told me everything. There was something called Facebook Audience Insights, which was the most amazing thing on earth, and it would tell you literally, this is who your people are, this is how old they are, this is the affinity audiences that they like. So they would literally tell you, like, if you want to target these people, do this audience, this audience, this audience. And now they strip all of that because of the privacy laws and the new iOS and what's going on in the EU. They're really cracking down on that. So in terms of what we're able to see from that, very limited. But yeah, Facebook is tracking everything that you're doing. And yeah, as you said, it's not a coincidence that when you're on Google and you're looking something up and then you go on Instagram or Facebook and then you immediately see an ad for it, they're communicating with each other. And that's how they're able to do that so effectively. So yeah, and there's not really much that we can, if you have a problem with that, there's not much that you can do. That being said, as a business owner, you should love it because it only helps you and makes your life easier. So.
Yeah, I definitely, as creepy as sometimes it is to see an ad for something that I was just talking to a friend about or texting or, just thinking of, it seems like sometimes I'm like, man, I need to use this to my advantage because there's probably a lot of people that are talking about moving or they're, looking up places to buy boxes or something. I mean, are they able to, like, if you were to go to a competitor moving company's website that had a pixel, or even if they don't have a pixel on there, is that telling Facebook that you're likely to move? And will you start to see other moving company ads potentially? Or maybe if you're going on realtor.com or Zillow, are those things talking to Facebook and basically telling Facebook like, hey, this person might, be a good candidate to be served this ad about a moving company?
Yeah, so to an extent, and I say that to say, like, uh I don't 100% know, and let me, like, clarify, no one knows. Like, if anyone tells you they understand the algorithm other than the person who's developing it, and they're lying, and I just like, that's a fact. For It's not open source, they don't tell you how they do any of this, and it's changing every single day, and like every
Hmm.
single day. Any media buyer will know that how the ads manager looked even a year ago is completely different than how it is now, and how it's moving. And they're trying to make it much more hands free to where anybody can just launch. So, for example, like, targeting people has never been easier, never. It's never been simpler. I would never worry about reaching the right people. What's more important is breaking through and being rememberable, because
Hmm.
now, because of that, the barrier of entry for your competition has never been lower. So you have to really focus on how to stand out, which is why my biggest advice would be to focus on the creative.
Hmm.
If you can
And
focus
A/B
on the creative
testing.
and how to stand out, yeah, exactly. Just test it. And that's what's awesome about organic content. TikTok, Instagram, like just post it for free, whatever. So I use organic content as a way to build ads, right? So like, I'll use my clients, I'll use all their socials, and whatever posts are doing the best gets the most engagement. Or if, let's say, there's a specific comment and someone has a question and it got a lot of likes or something, right? I'd make an ad addressing that question, if that makes
Hmm.
sense, right? So you want to use the free content, the organic content that's completely free that you can do to make, I guess, like educated guesses is the best way to say it on how to make the content. So if you're ever wondering, like, where should I start? I would do two things. The first one is first look at your organic content. And if you don't have any, just start. If you don't know where to start, it's just like look at your competitors, what they're doing, and put your own spin on it. And I know that sounds bad, like ripping them off. And don't rip them off completely, but put your own spin on it. And that's leading into my second thing. If you're really confused with ads and you've no idea, there's something called Facebook ads library, where you can
Hmm.
look at active and inactive ads of all your competitors in any industry, anybody in the world that's running ads. So it's called Facebook ads library. You just look it up. It's owned by Facebook, and you can type in your competitors, type them in, and you'll see all the ads. And if you see an ad that's been active for a really long time, unless that someone's managing their ads that has no idea what they're doing, that most likely means it's performing well, right? So I would take that messaging and maybe even the creative, like the visual, what it looks like, and just kind of tailor that to your own. And then that's probably the easiest place to start. Um, be careful copying everything they do, because now you're not standing out from them. But in
Well,
terms
you've
of a
got to
starting
build
place,
your
it's
own
the best.
brand anyway at
Exactly.
the end of the day. So, I mean, you're not going to, if you see an All My Sons ad in the Facebook ads library, you're not going to put All My Sons on your business. I mean, that just
Yeah,
won't make
exactly.
sense.
Oh,
But
of
if it's
course.
a picture of a little baby playing with a toy truck and, that's been up there for 3 years and it's got a ton of engagement, can you see the engagement in the Facebook ads library?
No, no, unfortunately you can't. They don't tell you the data. TikTok does. There may be a time where Facebook does. They may roll that out. We'll never know. One day I'll just wake up and be like, oh, it's there. Um, but as of right now, you can't. But I would just, look at, if they're a bigger company, especially looking at big competitors that are spending a ton of money, because they're most likely not going to have somebody there that they're going to let waste that money. Because they probably have an accounting team that's like really hounding on them all the time. So that's probably the easiest way to go about it. But to address what you were saying earlier, you can create when you're doing Facebook. Facebook knows who's more likely to buy something or to fill out a form versus like something or comment. So like engaging on a post. So they call them campaign objectives in the ads manager, and I could do awareness, I could do traffic, I can do engagement, I could do leads, I can do sales, I can do app promotion if you're selling an app, and it's actively looking for those people that are most likely to do that or that are known to have done that based on their past behavior on those platforms. So yeah, Facebook does know how you like to act. And I say that today, I use those objectives to be able to map that out. So, if I want a ton of engagement on a post to increase social proof, I'm using that engagement objective. Now I know I'm not going to probably get a ton of sales from that or leads, but that's not the goal of that, right? It's just to add social proof. And then I would take probably that same ad with that same social proof and then run it through a leads campaign so that all those, the people that are most likely to sign up are seeing all the engagement and the likes and everything, and adds a lot more social proof and makes them much more likely to buy or to fill out a form.
Gotcha. So if a competitor's ad has a bunch of comments and likes on it, then that's probably something to look at. And I was just going to ask, would you recommend basically looking at your professional dashboard for your company and seeing what gets the most traction, and then looking at competitors' organic posts and looking to see what gets the most likes and comments and shares that you can just see, and kind of using that as a basis to test some ads on something very similar to those pieces? Is that
Yeah,
is that something you?
100 exactly, exactly, yeah, and also use it for that, to create ideas about the top of funnel. right?
Mm.
So, just that like organic. I mean, the biggest problem that I see with that is just consistency. They might for the first week pump out 3 pieces of content and then they wait a week and then, maybe do one post and it's very intermittent. They're not consistently doing it. That's the biggest key is I would block off every business owner, block off time during your week. So the only thing you do is make content for
Mm.
organic, and that's the only thing you do. And that's the biggest, honestly, mistake because I do a lot of consultation calls, just like one on one, not necessarily managing their ads, but people just want me to look at maybe their ads they're managing, etc. And they just honestly don't treat content like it's valuable, and I think that's the biggest mistake. Because I mean, look at massive companies why they do those TV ads, right? None of them are like call to action, really. Very few TV ads that you see are like buy now, right? Except for like super infomercials. But most of them, right, are there to keep you top of funnel so that you remember, so that when you are ready to make that decision, you're the first person that pops in their mind because you can't escape them.
On an organic side, like is more content's better? Is there like a limit? Like if I post, 10 pieces of content a day, is that going to be is there a sweet spot like, 3 or 4 pieces of or one
No.
post a day or anything like
Yeah,
that?
so yeah, great question. So a lot of gurus will tell you no, which is false. The head of engineering for Instagram even said this. Mr. Beast has proved this. There's a page in Bollywood that posts 100 times a day, and they get 9 billion impressions a month.
Wow.
Yeah, and it makes sense if you think about it because what is Instagram's goal as a platform, right? They're incentivized to put your content in front of the most amount of people because that's how they make money. So, and every time you put it out there, you're only really reaching a very, very small percentage of your audience, right? Because like your content could go viral, but it could go viral for the wrong reason, if that makes
Mm.
sense. So you want to be
Yeah.
careful about that. Because what is equally as important is quality of followers, and that versus just quantity. Because if you get a ton of people that aren't your buyers, that aren't qualified, that just like it, that may hurt you even more actually. Because now
Uh,
when you're doing retargeting, you're targeting all these people that are not your audience, which is you're just wasting money now on targeting people that are wrong. So also make sure that it's, that you're not just trying to be viral for the sake of viral, but that you're talking to the right people. And that's another like leading, extending from that point. Don't like if a video doesn't get 1 million views, that's not necessarily the end of the world, right? Like,
mm,
if you're, because if you're a moving company, maybe, you know, 20,000 views is a lot, maybe 100,000 views. Like it's industry specific. You can't really say. But don't be so afraid of the quantity of views. Focus more on the quantity. And the easiest way to figure that out is just video. Like if you have a video and how much they're watching in terms of metrics. And this is where I was saying earlier, some things are just much more difficult to measure. But the easiest way to do that is video retention. So, on Facebook, you can see if they watch 25% of the video, 50, 75, 100%, right? So a normal audience that I like to make for middle of funnel is people that watch 25% or more of the video because they're at least very much engaged. And of course, the higher you get in percentage watch, the much more warm of an audience they are, if that makes sense. So yeah, just be careful equally trying to sacrifice quality for quantity.
that makes a lot of sense. And so if like we post something organically that goes viral, or maybe it's a Facebook, even if it's an ad, and it just it's really engaging, it goes viral, gets shared, liked, commented a whole bunch. Is that going to now favor my future posts in the algorithm because I've shown Facebook that maybe I am somebody worth showing more people because I had this one post that goes viral? Or is it just case by case depending on the post, or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. So I mean, you can see this. There's some pages that will have, one video that does 1 million views, and then their other videos do 4,000. Like it is what it is. What I would be doing though is okay, that million video, I'd be at the most granular level breaking down everything you did. So how you filmed it, the sound design, the editing angles, the aesthetic of it, all of that, like just taking and then trying to replicate it. Just keep on making content like that because obviously that's working. So, again, same thing like with the ads. Take learn from what you did in the past that's working well, and then continue to do that moving forward, and while testing new, hooks and angles and ways to talk to them.
Yeah, no, don't doubt. That's good info. Do you see a platform that like did the platforms like tend to attract different types of people? I mean, when I think of TikTok, I think of like younger kids, Gen Zers. Not to say that there aren't older people on there too, but when I think of Facebook, I think of a more mature person who might fit our ideal client as a moving company owner, typically somebody who's a little bit older. They've been on Facebook now for, they might have been a little late to join Facebook, but they've been on it for 10 years now. And then I think of maybe people in the middle or people that are more like kind of materialistic, I guess you could say, on Instagram. I mean, do you see that a little bit when you're running ads, or is
Yeah.
everybody on everything at the end of the day?
Um, Sort of. I mean, no, you definitely see if you do demographic breakdowns of what's performing better. There's two things I have to say about that. So the first one would be that the algorithm's very smart, and what I mean by that is it's going to optimize your spend based on what's performing the best, right? So if on Facebook, it's an older demographic that's always clicking on your ads, Facebook isn't just going to like throw all the money to young people. Like it knows that, and it's going to eventually just kind of force the spend into that older demographic because that's what's performing the best. Same thing with TikTok. All of these algorithms, in a nutshell, are essentially the same. Like they work that way. But the second thing I was going to say is that can be a mistake for some people if you're only focusing on that. And what I mean by that is, yes, like your audience now might be those the older demographic, but those middle age Gen Xers, etc. They one day will be older, right? Like they
Mm,
one day will be your audience, right? And the people that are owning their brand, like that are dominating their mind, when they get there, that's going to be their go-to, not you. So
mm,
be careful, especially if you're only trying to target older people, neglecting the people that will one day be old.
sure.
Because there is a market, there is someone in your industry that's already targeting them, and that is top of mind for them. So I wouldn't necessarily neglect one for the other.
That makes a lot of sense. What kind of ad spend would you say a company, small or medium sized business, moving company, like what's like a realistic ad spend? Because we got to test all these ads. I'm sure in the beginning it's a lot of testing. You find a few that start to work down the road that you can probably get a little bit more dialed in. But like, what's a realistic budget? You mentioned brand building, and a lot of that might scare away a lot of smaller businesses that can't afford to do brand building like Coca-Cola or whoever might be able to do. So like, in order to start to see results, like what kind of ad spend are we looking at and over about how long of a period of time, assuming that you're the one managing it, testing as much as you like to do, what kind of a time frame and budget are you looking at?
Yeah, so that's always a fun question to answer. So it of course depends on like your threshold and willingness of what you're of course to spend. But my normal recommendation of the bare minimum is $100 a day at least, and that's just to learn. And again, it's very specific depending on how much past data you have versus none. Like if you're brand new, the bare minimum I'd recommend is 100. And the reason for that is just because of speed of testing, right? Because Facebook bills you per impression. So, if you're spending any less than that, it will take you X amount longer to get the same result. So an easy way that I always frame it is the difference between $10 a day and 20 is I'm getting the same data in half the amount of time, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
would rather get that data quickly, as fast as humanly possible, so then I can make decisions on it quickly. So the more I spend, the faster I can make decisions and then edit and pivot and move and optimize. So it's
So
kind of a
you
double edged sword of,
a
right,
little bit
exactly.
to expedite the testing process, and then once you find some sets that are performing well, is it safe to say you could probably turn the dial down a little bit, reduce your spend, or you may not want to, you may want to turn it up to get more business if it's really working well. But say you're at capacity, say you're booked up, you've done the front loading, you tested everything to work. Now you just want to keep that level of business going. Could you turn it down a little bit and still see results?
Yeah, so what always happens every single time is I'll launch a ton of creatives and different audiences, and one creative and one audience will work. One creative maybe in a different audience will work. The rest of them won't. So I'll just kill all of those. So now I'm already at from like 100 a day to like 40, maybe 50, if that makes
Okay.
sense, right? So then and that's a high performing ad. So then I would take that remaining budget, put it into those winners. So, and if you wanted to cut it, you can. But again, it's like you're just going to be waiting longer now for that data. So it's a double-edged sword. No matter how you do it, you're either going to be spending more on the front end to get data faster, or you're going to be waiting longer just to get the same thing.
That makes sense. And the reason I bring that up is because moving is seasonal. Like now would be a good time as businesses ramping up for the summer to throw some money into getting it all tested and figuring out what works. So that way, when we're headed into the slower time of the year, we're going to be running a lot more efficiently with our ad spend. And you'll maybe be able, if you pump in a bunch of money in the summertime as you're making a bunch of money, that might carry you through the winter once you find some winning ads to where you can dial it down a little bit to stay as busy as essentially you'd want to stay. So that I could see that being really valuable for moving companies. Like summer, a lot of moving companies turn their advertising off in the summertime because they book up and they're like, oh, we don't want to get, we don't want to just waste our money on advertising. We're already booked. But if you look at it like what you're saying, use that as not a time to get business right now, but to keep your pipeline full in the off season and
Exactly.
spend that money to get the stuff dialed in the summertime so that what the winners are going in the off season. You're not wasting money when money's tighter.
Exactly. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better.
Cool. No, yeah, I like this. I like the timing of this. That's awesome. Okay, so I know we're coming up on time here. A couple last few questions here. So one of the things that moving company owners see works really well is direct mail to newly listed and pending homes. And we can get that data. We can skip trace a lot of that data. It's not always 100% accurate skip tracing, as I'm sure you know. But is there a way, and I know in Smart Moving, our CRM, we can filter out, our highest paying customers. We can filter out moves by zip codes and what the average ticket size and how much business we're getting in those zip codes are. Are we able to download those lists of customers or download that list of listing data and upload it into our campaign to have a very targeted approach towards people that we know are actually listing their home or that are in those exact zip codes? I know you mentioned lookalike audiences, so I guess it's a kind of a two-sided question. You might want a lookalike audience for the zip code stuff, but I guess for the listing data, are we able to take homeowner listing data and potentially whatever we skip trace out of those addresses and just target those homes that are for sale so that they're seeing your ads when they list their home and they're getting their direct mail or they're getting a door knocker or whatever else to kind of go along with it?
Yep, that's you 100% can. The one caveat that I would have that would just make this make it 10 times better is the problem with Facebook when you upload custom audience CSV from an email list. Well, whatever list. Normally it's an email list, but whatever list. The biggest problem is it's not going to match unless it's the email that that person has attached to their Facebook, which is a big problem because most people made their Facebook 15 years ago on some random email that they don't even that's not going to act anymore, whatever. So what I would do, the easy solution to that, and I use it all the time for everybody. There's a app, and I'm not like promoting this. I don't have a link or whatever. They're just great. It's called Clay.com, and it's a lead scraping app. And I use this to, of course, scrape leads sometimes to just make lists for testing. But what it will also do is you can put in your own lists, and then it will verify like, so essentially what I would do is I would take that list, put it in Clay, and then tell Clay, based on these people, also give me their social media email. So the email that's attached, and it will go and look and scrape, and it has like a like it has an authenticator. It's very, very advanced. Like it will find the one that's they actually use on their Facebook. And then it will populate in another CSV that I would upload, because what you'll find is that's a great list, but most of those emails, especially if they're attached to work or something, is
Mhm.
not going to populate on their Facebook. So, and that's mainly how they go about finding people and attaching them. Of course, their phone number, but it will just make it a much more thorough list.
And so is that an expensive program, or if people work with you and basically you already have it and you can use it for them, or do you have to charge per person you work with on that kind of thing?
Yeah, it depends like how much you want. You know what I mean? Like if you want, 100,000 lead list, right? Then like it costs a lot more because it's a per usage type thing. Yeah, I mean, normally I just use it for myself, and clients. Yeah, I mean, especially for local, it's very, very easy. It's much easier. It's much cheaper. It's not that expensive. I'm pretty sure it starts at like, maybe like 100 a month or something.
Okay.
It's very, very powerful though. It is, I guess, on the pricier side in terms of software and subscriptions, but in terms of its power and what it can do and how granular you can get with the targeting and the lead scraping, it's by far the most powerful lead scrape I've ever found.
Love that. I got one last question. I'll let you go. I know we both got to run, but in terms of tracking the full sales cycle, so in moving, most people aren't buying directly on the website when they click on the ad. Are you able to get into the CRM or API or whatever to get a true ROI on people that followed the journey through the ads, whether it's through a UTM parameter or whatever, and then match up, basically what the sales that you generated from people that were served ads at the end of the day, just for the people out there that, that don't like the idea of brand building, that want to see some kind of a tangible ROI.
Yeah. So yes, 100%. Now you will need third-party software to do it correctly, the right way. Like, yeah, you could, use Zapier and Google Excel sheets, but like the amount of data over time that you're talking about, that will be almost impossible to organize. That would be a full-time job just organizing that. So I use something called Hyros, Hyros, and it is by far the most powerful and advanced software. It's called third party conversion API software. That's what they call it. And it will track literally everything. So I know that they clicked on this post, then they opted in here on this date, then they clicked on this email, and then had a sales call with this guy, and then saw a retargeting ad, and then opted in then, or whatever. Right? Like it will tell you the whole journey, and then you can build reports on what makes you the most profitable based on attribution, right? And this is where tracking, we talked about the very like kind of surface level basics of tracking, but tracking is one of those things that's a massive rabbit hole that you get super, super deep with. Now, these softwares are on the pricier side because they bill you based off of not only how much you're spending, but how much revenue you're bringing in as well, and how
Uh,
much it has to track. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure the base subscription for Hyros is like 350 a month. Now, their support is genuinely the best I've ever seen in my life. They answer in like 5 minutes. They'll record a loom for you, like, because it's very complicated. So, in terms of setting it up, like, you would definitely have to hire a dev or someone that is very good at doing that. But in terms of transparency of the whole funnel, it's unmatched. But honestly, unless you're spending at least 10 grand a month, it doesn't even make sense.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, Jake, I know we ran over here. I said 45 minutes to an hour, but I just had so many questions. This has been
Oh, it's
extremely
fine.
informative and helpful. And I can't wait to work with you for Two College Brothers and the Moving Titan Retreat, and anybody else out there that wants to work with Jake. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my Instagram, I'll wherever this is being posted, I'll send you my Insta, and you could plug it in
Yeah,
the
we'll put
link.
it in the
It's
description. But what is
Yeah,
it?
perfect,
You
perfect.
see?
Yeah, it's Jack Blur right now. I'm in the process of rebranding myself. Lots happening. But it's JAKBLER on Instagram, and yeah, you can just DM me. Sarah in the podcast, and would love to connect. And yeah,
Awesome.
thanks, Wade. This is awesome, and would love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, well, we'll drop that Instagram handle in the notes for the show. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I hope that you were able to take as many notes as I did, because I got a whole book of them right here from this conversation. And looking forward to working with you, Jake. So have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.
You too. Thanks. Excited.
Before we wrap up, I want to thank the team at Hey Lou for making this show happen. Hey Lou is a virtual assistant placement and management platform owned by a fellow moving titan, and they provide the production for the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. But here's what's really amazing. Their virtual assistants do way more than just podcast support. From managing my crazy schedule to handling client communications, data and KPI analysis, and even sales support for a fraction of the cost of traditional salaried in-house employees, they're truly a secret weapon behind Two College Brothers' growth. Curious how a VA could transform your business? Check out our referral link in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out, and have a great day.